Hey guys, tonight we're diving headfirst into the soothing but staggeringly bizarre story of the most infamous drug crisis in American history, fentanyl. Yes, tonight, it's less knights and castles and more pharmaceuticals, panic and pain clinics with the ambience of a DMV. Imagine a world where the deadliest villain isn't a medieval warlord, but a tiny synthetic powder with the social skills of an invasive species at a house party. Before you kick back, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy listening to me gently roast the timeline of American medicine. Drop a comment telling me what city you're in and what time you finally gave up on sleep tonight, because statistically at least one of you is listening from a bathtub at 2:13 a.m. and pretending everything is fine. Now dim the lights, click on your white noise machine, and get comfortable. Maybe even double check the lock on your medicine cabinet. Tonight, we're going to ask the big questions. Have you ever wondered how pain relief turned into pain disaster? Who actually thought, you know what'll fix America? Synthetic opioids. Why are doctors suddenly writing prescriptions longer than CVS receipts? Could you have survived the pharmaceutical arms race? Or would you have ended up on a daytime TV special hosted by Dr. Phil? Would you recognize fentanyl if it shook your hand? Or would you accidentally sprinkle it on your spaghetti? And congratulations! You've just woken up in the American healthcare system circa 1990, the year pain became the fifth vital sign, and every other commercial on TV was for something that sounds suspiciously like a villain in a Marvel movie. Good luck. You shuffle into your doctor's office for a sore back and surprise. There's a new question on the clipboard. Rate your pain on a scale from 1 to 10. Suddenly you're being quizzed about suffering as if you're at a Chili's picking your wing sauce level. Welcome to the era when pain became the fifth vital sign, and doctors, nurses, and the office goldfish all wanted to know, are you suffering enough? Let's set the scene. The year is 1996. You're wearing jeans that absolutely do not stretch. Your car stereo only plays cassette tapes. And in every waiting room, a magazine from 6 years ago reminds you that Brad Pitt is still very much a heartthrob. The doctor's office smells like antiseptic and lost hope. The receptionist hands you a clipboard and, in her best "I'm not paid enough for this" voice, asks you to fill out the new pain survey. It's a little chart covered in faces, smiley for no pain, increasingly distressed for worst pain of your life. You're not sure if you're rating your back, your existential crisis, or just the awkwardness of describing your pain to someone you met 3 minutes ago. The nurse calls your name and, like a contestant on a low-budget game show, you're escorted to an exam room, handed a scratchy paper gown, and given a crash course in American medicine's latest obsession, pain management. The nurse, clipboard in hand, leans in with all the intensity of a hostage negotiator. Can you tell me what your pain is, on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 is basically bliss. 10 is stepping on a Lego while getting dumped via text. You pause. Is your pain a 4? A 6? Are you being dramatic? Does childbirth count as a 10, or is that reserved for paper cuts on your knuckles? Welcome to the revolution. Pain is no longer something you just grimace through until the ibuprofen kicks in. Now, it's data. It's a number. It's a vital sign, right alongside blood pressure, pulse, temperature, and the ability to make small talk about the weather. Suddenly, your discomfort is a metric, tracked, charted, and filed next to your cholesterol results and your last tetanus shot. Medical staff aren't just encouraged to ask about your pain, they're required to. If you mention pain and nobody writes it down, you're pretty sure they send the nurse to time out with the office potted plant. This isn't just your doctor being nosy. There are posters on the wall, big laminated reminders that pain is what the patient says it is. Pharmaceutical companies have sent out glossy brochures, and the Joint Commission, the folks who accredit hospitals, not a 1970s rock band, has declared that nobody should be denied relief. Suddenly, you're the star of your own pain drama, and every appointment is a chance to overshare. Of course, there's an unintended side effect to all this caring. If you rate your pain anything higher than a 5, it's as if you've activated a secret boss battle. The doctor starts reaching for prescription pads the way a waiter reaches for the dessert menu. Would you like something to take the edge off? Maybe a little something extra for bedtime? We've got options. Pills have brand names that sound suspiciously like luxury sedans. You're not just a patient anymore, you're a pain score. And the goal is 0. And just like that, pain goes from a private nuisance to a public spectacle. Your medical chart reads like a Yelp review for your own body. Friends compare their scores over coffee. Someone brags about making it through dental surgery with just a 3. Your neighbour claims she once hit an 8, but you're pretty sure she's exaggerating for sympathy points. So you leave the office with a prescription, a handout about pain, and a vague sense that you've just participated in the soft launch of a national crisis. America has a new vital sign, and you're now an unwilling pioneer in the age of quantified misery. Welcome to the Pain Olympics. May the odds be ever in your favour. Your local physician, previously known for their charmingly illegible handwriting, is now wielding the prescription pad like a wizard's staff. The medical consensus? Pain is bad. Pills are good. If you so much as wince during your physical, you leave with a bottle of something ending in done. Congratulations, you're now part of the opioid revolution. It's the late 1990s, and your doctor's office has been quietly transformed into a pharmaceutical drive-through. The walls are still beige, the blood pressure cuff is still cold, but something fundamental has changed in the air. It's hope, maybe, or just the faint whiff of sample packets and new drug reps. If your back hurts, your knee twinges, or you once stubbed your toe in a particularly memorable fashion, you're now eligible for a bottle of pure pharmaceutical optimism. Once upon a time, your family doctor might have sent you home with an ice pack and a motivational speech. Now the script is a little different, and so is the script pad. Your physician has attended 3 educational dinners at local steakhouses, all paid for by a smiling rep in a suit who cheerfully assures everyone that the new miracle pain pill is non-addictive in most patients. There are glossy brochures, a commemorative mug, and maybe even a branded stress ball shaped like a liver. Science! Suddenly, it's not enough to tough out a pulled muscle or take it easy for a few days. Pain is an emergency, and your doctor's job is to fix it, right now, with the click of a pen. The prescription pad has become the hottest accessory in medicine. It's whipped out for headaches, twisted ankles, and that mysterious lower backache you swear is from moving boxes but might just be from sitting weird in your office chair. If you mention pain out loud, you'll be leaving with something. And if you're not careful, you might end up with enough opioids to sedate a circus elephant. You probably don't realize it, but you're living through the golden age of the quick fix. In this new world, suffering is out, instant comfort is in, and nobody wants to be the doctor who left their patient in agony. Your physician's medical training is suddenly blending with customer service. Sorry about your shoulder. Would you like a side of hydrocodone with that? There's barely time to discuss root causes, stretching, or slow recovery. Instead, it's let's get you something for the pain, plus a coupon for a follow-up in 3 weeks. And it's not just you. Across town, your neighbour is leaving his checkup with a prescription for his tennis elbow. Your aunt's dentist, who once only handed out lollipops, is now prescribing oxycodone for a wisdom tooth extraction. Even your kid's paediatrician is quietly contemplating Tylenol with codeine for that stubborn ear infection. If it hurts, there's a pill for it, and if there's a pill for it, there's a doctor ready to write that script. Pharmacies are bustling. The pharmacists are developing carpal tunnel from counting pills, and every bottle has a warning label that gets longer and smaller with each passing year. The pill bottles pile up in medicine cabinets like mismatched Tupperware. You tell yourself you'll only take them as directed, but you also stash a few for just in case. Who wouldn't? They work so fast. It's almost like magic. The real magic, though, is happening in the background. Pharmaceutical companies are raking in profits. Doctors are rated by their patients for how well they manage the pain. If you're lucky, you find relief and move on with your life. If you're not, you discover that the pills are a little too effective, turning down the pain and turning up the risk. You never planned on being part of a revolution, but now you're here. A prescription in your hand, a warning on your tongue, and a lingering question in the back of your mind. What happens when the bottle runs out? And so, you step back out into the world, your pain dialed down to a comfortable 2, and your doctor smiling in the doorway, prescription pad still warm in their hand. The opioid revolution has begun, and you, my friend, are riding the first wave, one little pill at a time. Enter Purdue Pharma, a family-run pharmaceutical company with a marketing strategy so aggressive it makes timeshare salesmen look shy. Their new wonder drug, OxyContin, promises smooth, all-day relief for everyone from grandmas to rodeo clowns. Doctors are enchanted, patients are enchanted. The FDA, busy approving things after lunch. Let's set the stage. It's the late 1990s, and America is already warming up to the idea that no pain should go unmedicated. Purdue rolls out OxyContin like it's the iPhone launch of painkillers. The ads are everywhere: magazines, billboards, glossy pamphlets on every doctor's desk. There are charts, testimonials, and earnest doctors in lab coats pointing at graphs. If you're lucky, your next appointment might even come with a branded stress ball shaped like a happy pancreas. The sales pitch is simple and, honestly, pretty magical. OxyContin isn't just another pain pill. It's sustained release. It's abuse-resistant. It's the pharmaceutical equivalent of a self-cleaning oven. Just one pill every 12 hours, they say, and you'll feel as good as new. No peaks, no valleys, no drama. Suddenly, everyone is talking about steady-state pain relief, as if that's a thing you used to hear about at dinner parties. You nod along, pretending you know what that means, and wonder if you can get a sticker for being a good patient. And then the army arrives, the sales reps. They descend on small towns, big cities, and any doctor with a medical license and a lunch break. They're handing out pens, free notepads, catered lunches, and samples galore. Some offices end up with so many OxyContin-branded clocks, you start to think time itself is measured in milligrams. Got pain? Ask your doctor about OxyContin. Becomes the new mantra, right up there with no pain, no gain, except this one comes with a copay. Doctors are courted with free dinners and conferences in sunny places. Everyone gets a lanyard. Purdue's reps have answers for every question, especially the awkward ones. What about addiction? Oh, don't worry, they say smiling. It's very rare, less than 1%. The phrase floats through exam rooms and medical seminars like a cheerful ghost. If anyone doubts it, there's a stack of studies, often paid for by Purdue, to hand out, each one as comforting as a freshly warmed blanket. Meanwhile, the FDA is quietly giving its stamp of approval. Maybe it's the lunch rush, maybe it's the optimism, maybe it's just a lot of paperwork, but OxyContin gets the green light. Pharmacies start stocking it, doctors start prescribing it, and patients start asking for it by name. Even the grumpy pharmacist in town can't help but notice the demand. Your grandmother, your neighbour, even that tough guy at work with the tattoo of a wolf howling at the moon, everyone's got a script. You, of course, are just trying to keep up. OxyContin's everywhere. The local news is running feel-good stories about people finally getting their lives back. The company starts sponsoring pain awareness campaigns. It all feels very official, very safe, and very, very well organised. You start to wonder if maybe every ache and twinge in your body deserves its own prescription, just to be safe. In this golden glow, nobody's talking about downsides. The word opioid is pronounced with reverence, like it's a Swiss luxury brand. There are no warning labels in big letters, no late-night exposés, just a whole lot of smiling faces and pain scores dropping lower than your phone battery at 2 a.m. If you're worried, you're told to trust the science. And, well, who are you to argue with a guy in a suit handing out free chicken parmesan? And so, you become part of the great American experiment. One magical, slow-release pill at a time, you head home with your new prescription, a branded tote bag, and the vague feeling that you've just seen the future, and it looks suspiciously like a pharmacy aisle. No one could have guessed how the story would end, but for now, the pain is gone, the marketing is relentless, and OxyContin is king. Sleep well, everything's under control. Let's talk about the Sacklers, the billionaires who turned pain relief into a business model with the moral compass of a raccoon at a trash buffet. You'd expect these folks to be mysterious villains. Instead, they donate to art museums, all while their product quietly rewrites the meaning of epidemic. You probably haven't been invited to a Sackler family dinner, unless you're a marble statue, a museum trustee, or possibly the director of an opera house. The Sacklers are everywhere and nowhere, a dynasty that drifts through the public sphere on a fog of philanthropy and impeccable tailoring. You see their name etched in gold on gallery wings, university libraries, and hospital atriums. It's as if they're playing Sim City with cultural landmarks instead of, residential housing. Yet, for all their public generosity, the Sacklers are famously private. Their holiday cards do not include a family recipe for OxyContin cookies. You'll never spot them in a tabloid scandal. Instead, they operate with the discreet efficiency of a Swiss bank vault, smiling politely in group photos, never quite admitting how their fortunes were made. Their PR team probably deserves its own wing at the Met. The story starts with 3 brothers, Arthur, Mortimer, and Raymond Sackler, children of Jewish immigrants who set out to change American medicine. In the mid-20th century, Arthur makes a fortune revolutionizing pharmaceutical advertising. Think Mad Men, but with more blood pressure medication. The family's company, Purdue Pharma, quickly becomes a goldmine, specializing in all the things doctors love: new drugs, glossy brochures, and lavish medical conferences that look suspiciously like luxury vacations. By the time OxyContin launches, the Sackler empire is a well-oiled machine. The family doesn't just sell a product, they sell an entire world view. Pain is the enemy, and the answer is in a bottle. The campaign is everywhere. Soothing voices in commercials, smiling doctors, happy families tossing frisbees in slow motion. Meanwhile, the Sackler fortune grows, and grows, and grows. Their homes fill with priceless art, their events with celebrities. It's a masterclass in image management. The outside is pure generosity, the inside pure profit. At fancy parties, nobody mentions the lawsuits. At fundraisers, nobody asks what happens to all those pills after they leave the pharmacy. Instead, champagne is poured, endowments are announced, and another Sackler wing opens somewhere in the world. You can almost hear the sound of awkward forks scraping fine china as everyone collectively ignores the elephant in the room, the one with a pharmacy degree. As the opioid crisis swells, reporters start asking questions. Communities are devastated. Addiction rates skyrocket. Lawsuits appear like mushrooms after a rainstorm. The Sacklers' response: deny, deflect, and donate. They insist their product is safe, their marketing is ethical, and any problems are the result of abusers or rogue doctors. The family, meanwhile, quietly moves assets around, hires the best lawyers money can buy, and continues their campaign of cultural influence. If there's a photo opportunity involving a Nobel laureate and an enormous novelty check, odds are there's a Sackler nearby, smiling. Museums and universities for a long time seem happy to look the other way. It's hard to turn down millions for a new sculpture garden, even if the check comes with a faint aroma of oxycodone. For years, the Sackler name is synonymous with sophistication, not scandal. It's only as the lawsuits pile up and the headlines get uglier that institutions begin to quietly distance themselves. Wings are renamed, plaques are removed under cover of darkness, and the invitations to those glamorous dinner parties start to thin out. And yet, through it all, the Sacklers remain oddly untouchable. They give interviews where they express shock, that anyone could possibly link their philanthropy to something as messy as addiction. They insist they just wanted to help people. The art remains, the fortune lingers, and the American public is left to wonder how pain relief turned into the world's strangest dinner conversation, one where nobody wants to pass the gravy, but everyone wants a lawyer present. So if you ever find yourself wandering a museum late at night, reading names on marble plaques, remember, some fortunes are built on beauty, others on suffering, and some, remarkably, manage to buy both. Suddenly your doctor's office is busier than a Starbucks on free Frappuccino Day. Sales reps arrive with donut boxes and branded pens, giving out opioid samples like Halloween candy. You wonder if the cure for pain is just more bagels. Let's step into this new era of American medicine, where the real professionals in the building aren't always the ones with stethoscopes. The waiting room looks the same: outdated magazines, a fake plant gasping for water, the gentle hum of a fish tank with one very tired goldfish. But past the sliding glass window, something has changed. The halls are bustling with suit jackets and perfect teeth. Pharmaceutical reps, sleek as seals, glide from office to office, wielding boxes of treats like Trojan horses on a sugar high. You're waiting for your appointment, but you can smell the donuts in the break room. The doctor's handwriting might still be unreadable, but the branded sticky notes left by the sales reps are crisp and clear. There's a glossy new poster above the blood pressure cuff. Ask about long-lasting relief. Sponsored by a company whose name sounds vaguely Italian and reassuring. Even the receptionist has a new mug, courtesy of your friends at Purdue Pharma, filled to the brim with enough ballpoint pens to outfit an entire middle school. It's not just sugar and swag. Every week, a fresh-faced rep appears, armed with clinical evidence and PowerPoint slides, always ready to show how their pill is just a little smoother, safer, or more modern than the competitors. The free lunch is always something oddly aspirational: sushi, paninis, tiny quiches, food that feels too good for a windowless office. Doctors, nurses, and even the billing specialist who never smiles gather around like it's Thanksgiving, feasting while learning about the latest miracle drug. One hand holds a chicken satay skewer, the other, a pamphlet describing pain scores and patient satisfaction. You overhear snippets of the sales pitch as you walk to the exam room. Low risk of abuse, patient outcomes, backed by the latest studies from a university you've never heard of. The reps say these lines with a confidence usually reserved for weather forecasters and motivational speakers, and always the unspoken question, are you prescribing enough? Every pen, notepad, or insulated travel mug is a tiny branded reminder of what's expected. Even the sticky notes of Consider OxyContin printed in cheerful blue cursive. You start to wonder if the cure for pain is more about marketing than medicine. The sales reps smile, laugh at jokes, and somehow know everyone's birthday. They remember your doctor's favourite type of bagel. By the time they leave, they've replenished the snack supply and planted a subtle seed in the mind of every person they meet. Maybe it's time to try something new for pain. The numbers are staggering. In 1 year, pharmaceutical reps log enough miles to circle the earth several times, all in pursuit of that holy grail, a few extra prescriptions. Their expense accounts are the stuff of legend. Medical conferences begin to feel suspiciously like mini vacations, with educational sessions in the morning and cocktail hours by the pool. Continuing education suddenly means learning which hotel bar has the best nachos. Meanwhile, the samples pile up in storage closets and desk drawers. Patients, including you, walk out the door with trial packs tucked discreetly into purses and pockets, feeling like you've won the world's least exciting raffle. Pain management becomes a kind of pharmaceutical arms race. Whoever brings the most bagels wins. The only thing outnumbering the sales reps are the warning labels in size 6 font. When you finally get called back to see your doctor, you notice their white coat has a shiny new pin. Another thank you from another grateful pharmaceutical company. The real question isn't whether you'll leave with a prescription, but which colour-branded pen will be used to write it. You realise the sales rep has probably already answered that one for you. In the end, it's hard to say what healed you. The medicine, the marketing, or just the sheer volume of free pastries. One thing is certain, though. The pharmaceutical sales rep invasion has officially changed the face of healthcare, and possibly your cholesterol. Pain clinics spring up overnight, sometimes next to gas stations, sometimes inside gas stations. No one knows exactly who owns them, but everyone knows you can get a prescription there faster than a hot dog at a baseball game. Pill mill becomes the new American small business. Let's take a slow drive through the landscape of early 2000 suburbia. You pass the usual suspects: strip malls, tanning salons, discount mattress stores, and suddenly what looks like a doctor's office with a sign in the window advertising pain relief. Walk-ins. Welcome. You half expect a neon open 24 hours to flicker on. There's a line in the parking lot that stretches halfway around the building, but nobody looks particularly sick. Some people arrive in pyjamas, some in work boots. All of them clutch a folder, an X-ray, or just the vague promise of discomfort. Inside, it's business as unusual. The waiting room is decorated with faded plastic plants and chairs that squeak in protest. The walls are lined with posters, some medical, some just motivational. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. The receptionist, multitasking at the speed of light, barely looks up as you sign in. In the corner, a fish tank burbles quietly, the only thing moving slower than the paperwork. You're not here for conversation. You're here for relief. You soon realise this place isn't your old family practice. There's no talk of diet, stretching, or giving it a few more days. Instead, you describe your pain. It's, an 8, hand over a copay in cash, and are ushered back to meet a doctor who seems to be wearing running shoes for a reason. He asks how much it hurts, nods sympathetically, then hands you a prescription slip with the casual efficiency of a deli counter clerk. Take as needed, see you in a month. The visit takes less time than getting a coffee at the drive-thru. The economics are mesmerising. Pill mills operate with the speed and scale of a fast food franchise. In some towns, they're more common than pizza shops. They open at 9 a.m, close when the parking lot empties, and every hour is rush hour. The front desk is a model of cash-only efficiency. Insurance is as welcome as a cold call during dinner. Out back, unmarked vans come and go, pharmacists fill bottles at record speed, and there's always someone in the parking lot selling half their script to cover next month's rent. You hear the stories, how one person drove 3 hours for an appointment because their regular clinic shut down last week, or how a new pain specialist moved into town, set up shop next to the laundromat, and started writing scripts for anyone who could pronounce the word sciatica. The parking lot becomes its own little economy, a handshake, an envelope, a glance in the rearview mirror. Supply meets demand with the speed and subtlety of a garage sale. Meanwhile, word spreads. You tell your friend who tells their uncle, who tells a guy he met at the bus stop. Some clinics become minor legends with lines stretching around the block. The people coming and going don't look like the cast of a medical drama. They look like your neighbours, your classmates, your cousin who always brings his own chair to Thanksgiving. The pill mill is equal opportunity. Everyone hurts and everyone is invited. Local authorities try to keep up. There are surprise inspections and news exposés, but the clinics just move down the road, change names, or set up in a rented RV with a banner reading "Now accepting new patients." By the time anyone catches on, the business has already pivoted, the crowd has moved, and someone's cousin is making a fortune selling lockboxes out of his trunk. At the end of the day, the line in the parking lot grows a little longer, the prescriptions a little easier, and the whole system hums along quiet, relentless, and strangely familiar. In the new economy of pain, everyone's looking for relief, and the only thing harder to find than a cure is an empty waiting room. Sleep well and keep your receipt. You might need it. It's the early 2000s, and suddenly everyone you know is on painkillers. Grandma's hip, pills, uncle's gout, pills, neighbour's mysterious recurring toothache, extra pills. Pharmacies start running out of lockboxes. You look around your neighbourhood and realise that something strange has happened. Main Street is thriving, not with new bookstores or quirky cafes, but with pharmacies, urgent care clinics, and a suspicious number of wellness centres that never seem to close. The parking lots are always full, the drive-through pharmacy line wraps around the building, and the local paper's police blotter has gone from bike thefts to a daily list of prescription forgeries and break-ins. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the faint rattle of pills in plastic bottles echoing down the block. It starts with the little things. Every household suddenly has a special medicine drawer. You open it, looking for a Band-Aid, and discover half a pharmacy. Orange bottles, pill cutters, expired samples, and an instruction sheet the size of a novella. There's an awkward family conversation about safe storage after the neighbour's son is caught selling grandma's hydrocodone at school. Pill bottles accumulate the way old batteries or spare keys once did. Nobody really knows what's in them, but nobody throws them away just in case. Pharmacists, once known for their calm demeanour and slightly judgmental eyebrow raises, are now working overtime. They handle questions about dosing, side effects, refills, and occasionally the panicked late-night call. "Can I take this with wine?" Short answer, please don't. There are new protocols, more consultations, and an endless stream of insurance paperwork that threatens to topple the register. Even the smallest towns are swept up in the rush. You see billboards promising compassionate pain care, and local radio ads reminding you that you don't have to live with pain. Churches host medication take-back events, advertised right between the bake sale and the blood drive. The high school guidance counsellor quietly asks students if there are any pills at home that shouldn't be there. It's all very polite, very Midwestern, and very alarming. The social dynamic starts to shift too. You notice that friends compare medications the way previous generations compared lawnmowers or casserole recipes. There's competitive pill talk at barbecues. Someone brags about their breakthrough pain protocol, another shares tips for stretching a prescription. At family gatherings, half the table disappears after dinner for medication time. It's less secretive than you'd expect. After all, everybody's doing it. The medical system tries to keep up, but it's like fighting a tidal wave with an umbrella. Doctors juggle patients, pain contracts, and follow-up visits, trying to balance genuine need with mounting suspicion. The local ER starts posting signs warning that we do not prescribe opioids for chronic pain. Patients, meanwhile, become experts at the art of the medication story, knowing just how much to share, how to sound both sincere and in need, and how to avoid being flagged as drug-seeking, whatever that means this week. Underneath it all, something even subtler is changing. People begin to talk about pain differently. Where once you'd power through a sprained ankle or a dental procedure with little more than aspirin and stubbornness, now there's an expectation, almost a promise, that there's a pill to fix it. Pain is no longer an inconvenience. It's a medical emergency, and relief is just a signature away. Main Street, which once measured its prosperity in pancake breakfasts and football parades, now hums with the commerce of comfort. Pharmacies expand, install drive-thrus, and add consultation booths. Every waiting room has a stack of patient education brochures, and every family has a story about the time the prescription ran out early. It's progress, in a way, just not the kind anyone expected. As the sun sets on your rebranded Main Street, you can't help but wonder how this quiet revolution crept in so fast. A decade ago, pain was something you endured. Now it's something you medicate, and while the street looks the same, you know that underneath the surface everything is different. Sleep well, just remember to lock the medicine cabinet. At first, it's all better living through chemistry. Then, a subtle shift. The painkillers stop working, the bottles empty faster. You wake up one morning and realise the only thing in your medicine cabinet is a note from your former self saying, "Oops, this wasn't how it was supposed to go." You were promised a modern miracle, a prescription, a routine, maybe a few days of fuzzy bliss, and then back to business as usual. But business, as it turns out, is anything but usual. The pain that once faded with a single pill is now only quieted after 2 or 3. What was manageable is now, somehow, in control. You're not just chasing comfort anymore. You're chasing normal. It starts innocently. You take your pills as prescribed, maybe even less, because you're careful, responsible, practical. But bodies are stubborn. Tolerance creeps in, tiptoeing past your good intentions. The little orange bottle, once a symbol of relief, becomes a weekly worry. You find yourself shaking it, counting the pills, doing math you haven't done since high school algebra. If I take just 1 extra today, will I have enough until the next refill? The clock above the bathroom mirror ticks louder. You develop a 6th sense for pharmacy hours. Soon, you're watching the calendar like a nervous squirrel. Refills become milestones. The pharmacy tech learns your name, and you learn the art of small talk that hides desperation. "Rough week, huh?" you say with a weak smile, hoping they don't notice the edge in your voice. Maybe you even lose a few pills down the drain, hoping for a sympathy script. You begin to Google things like early refill excuses and signs of withdrawal. The world narrows, and your medicine cabinet, once a collection of old cough syrup and half-used sunscreen, becomes the axis of your universe. Your pain, once so clear and physical, starts to blur with a new ache, anxiety, dread, a sense of falling behind on a race you didn't sign up for. There are headaches that medicine doesn't fix, bones that ache in ways you don't remember, nights that stretch out, white and sleepless. You become an expert at justifying, at promising yourself this is temporary, that you'll quit when things get better, or after the holidays, or when the doctor finally listens. Maybe you ask for a stronger dose, or a different pill. Maybe you start seeing a new doctor, in a new zip code, just for a second opinion. You learn the language, break through pain, intolerable discomfort. Nothing else helps. You practice looking tired, but not too tired, in the waiting room mirror. The fear of running out is now worse than the pain itself. And yet, on the outside, life might look the same. You go to work, pick up groceries, show up at your kid's game. But inside, you're always calculating, how many pills do I have? How long can I make them last? What will I do if I run out? You hide your stash in creative places, in the flour jar, behind the cleaning supplies, taped to the underside of your desk drawer. You start to wonder if your neighbours notice anything, or if everyone's just as distracted as you are. Relationships become tricky. You start avoiding dinners and trips, anything that interrupts the sacred routine. Friends who once offered comfort now feel like liabilities. They might notice, or worse, ask questions. You offer excuses, blame the stress, say you're just tired. You try to keep it together because the alternative, admitting you're in trouble, feels impossible. You're not like those people, you tell yourself, until the difference starts to vanish in the rearview mirror. One morning you catch your reflection and don't quite recognize the person staring back. There's a dullness in your eyes, a tiredness you can't sleep away. The pills that once gave you relief have become your new captor. It's no longer about living better, but just making it to the next refill, the next day, the next quiet, desperate bargain with yourself. You started this journey hoping to feel less pain. Now, you'd give anything just to feel like yourself again. As prescription prices climb, something strange happens. Old-school heroine, remember her, slinks back into American towns like a washed-up rock star on a comeback tour. Only now she's cheaper, stronger, and definitely not safer. It starts quietly, almost politely, the way all disasters seem to. You notice the prescription bottles getting lighter, the copay creeping higher, and the pharmacy saying, "Sorry, we can't fill that early," with increasing firmness. Your doctor starts mentioning things like opioid contracts and risk management. Suddenly everyone's nervous. The clinic that once handed out scripts like Halloween candy now has you filling out forms, signing waivers, and promising Scout's honour not to share, sell, or even look at your pills the wrong way. You try to tough it out. Maybe you cut your pills in half, stretch the supply, see if Tylenol really is enough this time. But the pain, the old pain, the new anxiety starts nipping at your heels. You swap stories with friends in parking lots, trade numbers for clinics rumoured to be lenient, and wonder, just for a second, if anyone is really getting better. You're not alone. All over town, people are feeling the squeeze. The pill supply dries up, but the demand, like a river after a storm, keeps rising. Enter heroine, stage left, ready for her encore. She's not wearing bell-bottoms or a tie-dye headband this time. She arrives dressed for the times, subtle, anonymous, adaptable. She's cheaper than your old prescription, easier to get than a refill, and thanks to a new wave of suppliers delivered faster than a pizza. The transition is awkward at first. You tell yourself you're just trying it to get by, just until the next doctor's appointment, just until things get easier. But heroine doesn't care about your justifications. She's less fussy than the pharmacy, less judgmental than your physician, and infinitely more available. Word spreads. She'll take the edge off, and you won't have to explain yourself at the counter. There's no insurance paperwork, no ID check, just cash, sometimes not even that. In back alleys, borrowed cars, or the privacy of your own kitchen, deals are made. The product comes wrapped in little bags, not orange bottles. The label is gone, but the risk is new and exponential. And the strength, oh, the strength. This isn't the heroine of the 1970s, the one whispered about in grainy after-school specials. No, this batch is potent, sometimes laced with things you can't pronounce, sometimes cut with substances you'd never put in your body on purpose. Dosing becomes a dangerous game of guess and hope. Every bag is a lottery ticket, and the jackpot is survival. The change ripples through the community. You see faces from the pharmacy in places you never expected. Parking lots, back rooms, bathrooms with locks that don't quite close. The stigma is heavy. No one brags about this switch. Old boundaries blur, nurses, teachers, construction workers, grandmothers, everyone caught in the same undertow. Families whisper, police reports pile up, and emergency rooms fill with overdoses. Narcan becomes a household word, as common as Tylenol. The tragedy of heroin's second act is how ordinary it becomes. It's the logical next step in a supply chain built on desperation. When pills become scarce, you don't become less desperate, you just get more creative. The news tries to keep up. Headlines flicker with words like epidemic and crisis, but for most, it's just another Tuesday. You never planned to see heroin again. You never imagined she'd be so close, so familiar. But here she is, sliding into the gaps left by a healthcare system that pulled back too late. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't care about your pain scale, and never runs out of supply. All she wants is everything you have left. As night falls and you lie awake, you wonder how it got to this point. How a country chasing relief found itself cornered by a drug it thought it had left behind. And how, even now, the story keeps playing out, one quiet, desperate encore at a time. And then comes fentanyl, a synthetic opioid so potent. It makes morphine look like herbal tea. Cheaper, easier to smuggle, and invisible in street drugs, fentanyl quietly hijacks the entire opioid market. You're now living in a world where one mistake can turn a night out into a news story. The first time you hear the word fentanyl, it sounds vaguely scientific, maybe an ingredient in a new allergy pill or a weird kind of countertop cleaner. But no, fentanyl isn't here to dust your shelves. It's here to redraw the map of addiction in America, and it's not asking for your permission. What started as a tightly regulated hospital painkiller, locked away with the good scissors and the real syringes, suddenly slips out the back door and makes its way onto the streets. Fentanyl's resume? Short, terrifying, and extremely effective. It's used for surgeries, for cancer pain, and now for flipping the script on the entire opioid crisis. You don't see fentanyl in a labelled bottle at the pharmacy. You find it as an invisible, unpredictable hitchhiker, laced into heroin, sprinkled into fake pain pills, and even dusted onto cocaine for reasons nobody in their right mind can explain. It doesn't care about your drug of choice. It just wants to join the party, uninvited, in doses so small they barely coat the head of a pin. You start hearing new stories on the news, young people, old people, All people overdosing on drugs they thought were safe, or at least as safe as any drug bought in a Wendy's parking lot can be. There's a new tension, an invisible threat you can't smell, see, or taste. The dealers love it. Why deal in bulky, smelly heroin when you can traffic something 100 times more potent, 100 times smaller, and 1,000 times easier to hide? Suddenly, drug busts are seizing packages that look like innocent envelopes of protein powder or face cream, only they pack enough fentanyl to flatten a small town. Border agents, previously on the lookout for bricks and bales, are now equipped with gloves and hazmat suits, because just touching the stuff is enough to send you to the ER. Word gets out quickly. One pill, one line, one moment of bad luck. Gone. Suddenly every public service announcement sounds like a horror story. Don't trust anything they say. Not even your old dealer. Not even the pills you find in your friend's glove box. Concert venues, schools and libraries start stocking Narcan, the overdose antidote, the way they used to stock fire extinguishers. And every time you see another news story, another face on the screen, another vigil with too many candles, you wonder, how did it get this bad? Social media, ever helpful, starts spreading stories both true and spectacularly false. Urban legends swirl about cops passing out from touching fentanyl. Not true, but nobody's taking chances. Parents panic about Halloween candy. Teenagers worry about party drugs. And for the first time, being the designated driver isn't enough. You're also the designated chemist. Test strips become the newest must-have accessory. A night out feels less like a party and more like prepping for a chemistry lab you never study for. What's even stranger is how quietly it all happens. There are no dramatic fentanyl cartels in the movies, no jazzy theme song or Hollywood villain. Just a handful of powder in a baggie changing the rules of the game. Doctors who once prescribed opioids with abandon are now on high alert. Paramedics run drills on overdose protocol. The average American can now recite the steps for administering naloxone before they can remember their own blood type. Fentanyl isn't interested in fame or fortune. It wants efficiency, invisibility, and results. For decades, the opioid crisis was a slow burn, tragic, but predictable. Now it's a lightning strike, fast, random, merciless. The world feels a little less safe and everyone is left double-checking their choices, hoping the odds are on their side. You fall asleep knowing that a new kind of storm has arrived, small, white, and terrifying. You'd think fentanyl was scary enough, but no. People start tweaking the recipe in garage labs across the globe. Now it's carfentanil, acetylfentanyl, and a dozen other analogues, each with names that sound like failed Star Wars villains. Let's take a moment to appreciate human ingenuity, for better or for much, much worse. If the opioid crisis were a cooking show, this would be the mystery ingredient round. You'd imagine that after fentanyl, a substance so powerful you need a microscope just to see your dose, most folks would tap out. Not so. In the never-ending quest for the next big thing, amateur chemists, professional criminals, and a few people who probably failed chemistry class but found YouTube tutorials all start playing Dr. Frankenstein in basements and rental storage units. It turns out, you don't need a sprawling pharmaceutical plant or a team of Nobel laureates. All you need is a little know-how, a dark web recipe, and a strong stomach for risk. The result? A periodic table's worth of new synthetic opioids, each one, theoretically, a designer drug, not in the sense of a fancy handbag, but in the sense that the person who made it probably didn't wash their hands first. Some are cooked up to be more potent than fentanyl, yes, really. Some to slip through legal loopholes, and all of them to keep the market fresh. Carfentanil enters the scene, an elephant tranquilizer, technically, which tells you everything you need to know. It's 100 times stronger than fentanyl, which was already 100 times stronger than morphine, which means you're now several orders of magnitude into the maybe-don't zone. But the thrill of innovation doesn't stop there. Soon there's acetylfentanyl, butyrylfentanyl, furanylfentanyl, each with names that, if you saw them in a comic book, you'd assume belong to henchmen, not hazardous substances. These analogues have a way of sneaking in everywhere. They're in counterfeit pain pills mixed with heroin, sprinkled into party drugs. Sometimes users know, but mostly they don't. There's no quality control in this new Wild West. You could get something weak enough to do nothing, or strong enough to stop your heart before you finish your sentence. Dosing, as always, is a game of Russian roulette, only now the gun is 3D printed and you can't even see the bullet. Law enforcement and scientists are left scrambling. For every analog banned, 2 more pop up like the world's deadliest game of whack-a-mole. Emergency rooms see waves of overdoses with symptoms no one's ever seen before. Toxicologists update their spreadsheets in real time. Even the lab equipment starts to protest fentanyl. Again. Legislators try to catch up, passing laws to ban the latest variation, but the chemists simply change a molecule and the cycle begins anew. Meanwhile, the internet quietly hums along, full of forums where recipes are swapped like casserole tips at a church picnic. Packages shipped from overseas, labelled research chemicals or plant food. Customs agents eye suspicious powder with dread. Parents Google opioid analogues and wonder how the science project in the garage got so out of hand. In this era, the distinction between user and victim, entrepreneur and outlaw, scientist and survivor, blurs into a haze. A single mail order, a single miscalculation, and the consequences ripple out. ER visits, frantic phone calls, obituaries that sound eerily familiar. Friends and family, caught off guard by the suddenness of it all, are left with questions science hasn't answered yet. So you tuck in tonight, the glow of your phone lighting up headlines about new synthetic dangers. It's hard to believe that the thing keeping chemists and first responders up at night isn't some distant disease, but a rotating cast of invisible, nearly unpronounceable powders. In the modern opioid crisis, history's deadliest villains aren't always in disguise. They're right there on the label if you can keep up with the spelling. Suddenly everyone's carrying naloxone, Narcan, like it's a spare set of keys. Schools, libraries, even Taco Bell stock it, because any public bathroom could become a triage unit. Nothing says land of the free like learning to reverse an overdose on your lunch break. You start noticing it everywhere. There's a box mounted to the wall by the defibrillator at the grocery store, next to the employees must-wash hands sign. You see it on the news, in public service announcements, on the list of supplies for teachers, right between dry erase markers and facial tissues. In first aid classes, there's now an extra hour dedicated to opioid overdose response. The trainer demonstrates with a mannequin, a nasal spray, and the careful reassurance that anyone can do this. Really. It's as if America woke up one day and quietly decided that saving someone from death by drug is now a basic life skill, like CPR or making a sandwich. You find yourself checking your bag before leaving the house. Phone, wallet, chapstick, Narcan. The nasal spray comes in a plastic case the size of a mini deodorant stick. Non-threatening, almost cheerful, as if reversing a near-death experience is just another item on your to-do list. In some states, pharmacies display signs. Naloxone available here, no prescription needed. You can walk in, ask for it, and leave with the power to save a life, no questions asked. Some health departments run pop-up events, handing out free kits and a quick rundown. Spray in the nostril, call 911 and wait. It's so simple, so streamlined that you start to wonder what else you should be carrying. EpiPens, perhaps? A snakebite kit? Is it time to bring back those cartoonishly large first aid boxes from 1950s cartoons? The cultural shift is subtle, but everywhere. There are signs in subway stations, tips on social media, and how to use Narcan posters taped to bathroom stalls. High schools hold assemblies, and suddenly, the least scandalous thing in the nurse's office is the overdose rescue kit. College orientation includes a quick video, what to do if your roommate stops breathing. At staff meetings, supervisors pass out Narcan, alongside the quarterly performance review. You feel oddly comforted, and also a little unsettled. And then, inevitably, the moment comes. You're in a diner or a park, or maybe just walking through the parking lot of a 24-hour supermarket, and you see someone collapsed. There's a hush, everyone freezes, unsure what to do until someone says, "Does anyone have Narcan?" And just like that, 3 people step forward, kits in hand, as if they'd all been waiting for this exact scenario. Someone administers the spray, another person dials 911, and within minutes colour is returning to cheeks. Breath is stuttering back. It's a small miracle, mundane, practiced, necessary. Of course, there's a strange national awkwardness about the whole thing. Some people celebrate, some complain. Critics argue it enables bad behaviour, as if the mere presence of Narcan encourages someone to press their luck. But the truth is, overdose doesn't care if you're a soccer coach or a cashier. Accidents happen, pills are tainted, mistakes are made, and everyone, literally everyone, has become a first responder. Narcan training is the new team-building exercise. Fast food employees get a bonus for carrying it. Bus drivers are quietly heroic, knowing that the next emergency might happen on the back row. Parents slip a kit into their glove box and hope it stays unopened. You add it to your packing list for weekend trips just in case. There's a strange sort of hope in all this. The idea that ordinary people, equipped with a $40 spray, can rewrite the ending of the opioid crisis, one rescued breath at a time. It's not perfect, and it's not easy. But tonight, you can rest knowing that somewhere, someone's life is still ticking along because a stranger cared enough to carry the new American inhaler. Sleep well and keep your kit close, just in case. At first, the opioid crisis is on every channel, then just every other channel. Then it's back to sports scores and viral TikToks. You start to wonder, does anyone actually care, or do we just have a really short attention span? It's strange, the way a crisis can dominate every headline, every TV crawl, every grim special report, and then just fade. Remember when you couldn't pour your morning cereal without hearing about America's deadliest drug? There were exposés, interviews, town halls with folding chairs, and a parade of experts explaining things in tones reserved for weather emergencies and alien invasions. It was the only thing anyone talked about, until suddenly, it wasn't. At first, the coverage is relentless. Every news anchor has a furrowed brow. There are pie charts, graphs, earnest journalists standing in front of urgent-looking hospitals, the opioid epidemic, a nation in crisis. Your local paper runs profiles of families torn apart, heroic rescue stories, and the occasional politician vowing to fix everything by next Thursday. At night, 60 Minutes rolls out another segment, and the nation collectively clutches its remote. But the clock ticks forward. Stories repeat. The numbers are big, then bigger, then numbingly huge. There's only so much tragedy you can take before you need a commercial break. So the coverage thins. The network finds a new disaster, a viral video, a celebrity wedding. You notice the breaking news is less about overdoses and more about the squirrel on water skis or the world's largest zucchini. Ratings, after all, have their own rules. You start to see the shift in small ways. At first, it's crisis fatigue, a gentle muting of the horror, replaced by expert panels and policy talk. Eventually, the faces of addiction, once so present, become background noise. The family interviews stop, the politicians pivot. A new anchor sits at the desk, bright-eyed and ready to talk about anything else. The ticker at the bottom of the screen goes from overdose numbers rising to local football team wins big. People breathe a sigh of relief. The problem isn't solved, but it feels easier to forget. Social media, with its limitless scroll, gives the crisis a brief afterlife. Hashtags trend, then vanish. There's a viral thread, a think piece, and then the algorithm moves on. You see TikToks about what's really in your medicine cabinet, but more about cats with bread on their heads. The crisis becomes a punchline, a meme, a cautionary tale too bleak for most comment sections. Meanwhile, in real life, the problem never left. Emergency rooms are still busy, families are still searching, mourning, fighting. But the spotlight has moved, and you start to wonder, does attention span determine what matters? Or do we just need the comfort of looking away for a little while? For politicians, it's the same cycle as ever. Big speeches, urgent press conferences, the promise of action, followed by the silent shuffle to the next issue. For communities, there's frustration. You host a vigil, but the cameras don't come. You write a letter, but the editor is swamped with election news. It's hard not to feel invisible, like you're screaming into a pillow while the world debates the next viral dance craze. The irony is, this is how most big crises end, not with a solution, but with a slow collective shrug. There's no ticker tape parade for survivors, no breaking news for the quiet work of recovery. The story is still happening, just not where anyone's looking. So tonight, as you settle in and the TV quietly drones in the background, you realize history is full of forgotten emergencies. The headlines move on, but the people don't. And sometimes, the most important stories are the ones that no longer make the news at all. Sleep well, and maybe tomorrow, remember what didn't trend today. Police departments suddenly need chemistry lessons, hazmat suits, latex gloves, and do not touch. The white powder signs become standard. Cops carry Narcan, and training videos now feature advice like, don't breathe near the evidence. Gone are the days when the wildest thing a cop found in the evidence locker was a suspicious baggie of oregano and the occasional slightly dented can of beer. Now patrol cars are stocked like rolling labs, and everyone's worst subject in high school, chemistry, has become a daily survival skill. Roll call sounds less like a tactical briefing and more like a pre-lab lecture. Remember, fentanyl can be absorbed through the skin, so if you see something suspicious, triple glove and call in the professionals. Also, don't forget to wear your safety goggles. Yes, we're serious. Departments run crash courses, sometimes taught by the same science teachers whose labs the officers once accidentally set on fire. There's a PowerPoint presentation, safety quizzes, and a demo involving a surprisingly intimidating mannequin. The difference between don't touch and abandon ship is discussed in detail. You half expect someone to ask if there's extra credit for not passing out in the evidence room. The gear is next level. Hazmat suits with more zippers than a Fashion Week runway. Face shields so big you could land a helicopter on them. There are latex gloves, nitrile gloves, then a second layer of latex gloves for good measure. Duct tape becomes a critical piece of police equipment, not for suspects, but for sealing cuffs, collars, and anything else where powder could sneak in. The local precinct's storage closet now holds as many respirators as radios. The chief is pretty sure someone borrowed the department's only Geiger counter, just to be safe. On patrol, a traffic stop is now a scene out of a science fiction movie. An officer leans into a car, sees a suspicious speck on the seat, and immediately calls for backup. Out comes the fentanyl response kit, complete with its own instruction manual and a tiny plastic shovel. The rules are simple. Don't touch, don't sniff, don't panic. One officer jokes that all they're missing is a portable shower and an emergency decontamination tent. Nobody laughs too hard, just in case. The police academy updates its training videos. Gone are the days of this is your brain on drugs. Now it's this is your airway after accidental fentanyl exposure. The instructors stress the importance of Narcan, not just for others, but for each other. If your partner keels over, administer Narcan and call EMS. If you keel over, try not to land on your face. You realize that somehow law enforcement has joined the front lines of chemistry class, and the penalty for getting a test question wrong is a little higher than a failing grade. Even the paperwork changes. Evidence bags are now sealed, double-sealed, and labelled with warnings bigger than the item inside. Do not open without full PPE. Officers learn to photograph everything before touching it, then send the photo to someone with an advanced degree and just say no. The local lab tech becomes the precinct's most popular staff member, fielding calls at all hours. Is this dangerous? What if it's just flour? Why does it glow in the dark? The community takes notice too. Neighbourhood watch groups start their own crash courses in white powder identification. Local high schools add fentanyl awareness to health class. Parents, once worried about candy laced with razor blades, now worry about anything that looks even remotely powdery. Halloween is now celebrated with a flashlight, gloves, and a healthy dose of suspicion. In the midst of all this, cops are still expected to do all the regular stuff. Keep the peace, direct traffic, rescue cats from trees. Only now, they're doing it with a new respect for chemistry and a slight paranoia about powdered donuts. The world's changed, the rules have changed, and the war on drugs now comes with a side of safety goggles. As you drift off, imagine the nightly police briefing. Stay safe, stay smart, and please, don't breathe near the evidence. Sleep well, Officer Science. Behind the headlines, it's families, friends, and entire towns wrestling with loss. GoFundMe pages for funeral expenses, vigils with more candles than a Yankee Candle outlet, and a grief that's quieter than any breaking news alert. Because long after the cameras pack up and the news cycle finds a new disaster, the hardest stories keep unfolding in living rooms, kitchens, and borrowed folding chairs in church basements. You notice it everywhere. A house on your block with the porch light left on for days, a mother at the grocery store staring too long at nothing, a neighbour's mailbox crowded with sympathy cards. Sometimes the signs are loud, fundraisers, casseroles, lines of cars at the cemetery, but mostly grief is a gentle, relentless tide. It rolls in, soaks everything, and refuses to leave. Funerals come faster than anyone expected. Not the neat scripted ones with printed programs and hymns everybody knows, but the awkward, improvised kind. Someone's cousin reads a poem from their phone. Someone else tries to remember a favourite story, but their voice cracks and gets lost in the silence. There's an open seat at the family table. Photos appear on the fridge. A graduation, a birthday, a blurry moment nobody thought would be important until it was all they had left. Money becomes a problem almost immediately. A lifetime of expenses, rent, groceries, gas. suddenly collides with the price of loss. GoFundMe links are shared quietly, almost apologetically, as if the pain itself needs crowdfunding. The messages are always the same. Anything helps. Help us lay them to rest. Thank you for your prayers. Donations trickle in. $10 from a high school friend, $50 from an old co-worker, $100 from someone who never even met the family. Every bit helps, but the emptiness remains. In small towns, the effects ripple wider. One family's grief becomes a community's ache. At the local vigil, you see faces you haven't seen in years. Coaches, teachers, the lady who always wore the biggest hat to Sunday service. Candles flicker in the cold, wax puddling onto plastic cups and mittened hands. There are tears, quiet nods, and the familiar helpless question, what else could we have done? Guilt seeps in, the shadow that always follows. Friends replay old conversations, scanning for signs they missed. Parents double-check medicine cabinets, haunted by what they should have known or done or said. Even siblings, the ones who fought over the remote and borrowed each other's clothes, feel a strange responsibility. Maybe if they'd called more, nagged less, shown up that one last time. The burden isn't fair, but grief never really is. The human toll is everywhere, in the little things. An empty chair at Thanksgiving, an unopened text message, a dog who still runs to the door at the sound of footsteps that never come. Children ask questions grown-ups can't answer. Friends offer casseroles and awkward hugs. Sometimes there's anger, at doctors, at the system, at the world, even at the one who left. Most often, though, it's just exhaustion. Grief that settles in for the long haul, unpacking in the corners of ordinary life. Yet even here, there's a strange, stubborn hope. Communities come together, not because they know what to do, but because not doing anything is unbearable. Meals show up, lawns get mowed, cars are fixed, kids are driven to practice by someone else's mum. There are story circles, church potlucks, and the slow, steady promise that, while nothing can ever really fill the space left behind, no one has to face it completely alone. So as you close your eyes tonight, remember that behind the statistics, the policies, the panic, there are ordinary people doing the hardest work of all, finding ways to survive, honour, and remember. In the quiet that follows the news, real life keeps going. One candle, one casserole, one kindness at a time. Fentanyl isn't made in your neighbour's garden shed. It comes from overseas, hidden in barrels of industrial glue, stashed in teddy bears, or just mixed into anything that'll cross the border. The war on drugs suddenly feels more like a "Where's Waldo?" for customs agents. Imagine for a moment that you're a customs officer on a sleepy Tuesday. Your desk is buried in paperwork, your lunch is already suspiciously missing from the fridge, and your main plan for the day involves quietly counting down the hours until you can go home. Then a truck rolls up, loaded with boxes labelled children's party supplies. You're not expecting a twist, but the guy driving is sweating enough to water your houseplants. You take a peek inside. Balloons? Check. Confetti? Check. A stuffed bear with stitches that look a little too fresh? Check. You open it up and, surprise, it's not stuffing, but a plastic bag of powder worth more than your retirement fund. This is the new normal in the world of fentanyl smuggling. Forget old-school drug tunnels and speedboats with names like Fast and Furious 4. Today, traffickers have turned every container, package and mail order into a game of high-stakes hide-and-seek. Customs officers scan barrels of glue, boxes of shoes, even dog food. The possibilities are endless. There's fentanyl in jars of face cream, hidden in bicycle frames, tucked inside ceramic garden gnomes. If it can cross a border, someone's tried to stuff drugs in it, and the scale is staggering. 1 kilogram of fentanyl can be pressed into hundreds of thousands of doses, enough to flood a whole city with just a single shipment. It's compact, potent, and easy to conceal. Instead of giant bales or bricks, you're searching for a sandwich bag that could bring a state to its knees. The stakes are so high that every customs agent has become part detective, part scientist, and part very tired security guard. There's new equipment, endless training, and more acronyms than you'll ever remember. You see the headlines: largest bust in history, tons of drugs seized at border, cartels outsmart latest X-ray technology. TV footage shows agents with surgical gloves, sorting through boxes, trying not to sneeze near the evidence. Sometimes they celebrate a win, an intercepted shipment, a foiled plot. Sometimes they mourn the one that slipped through. Every day is a roll of the dice. Behind the scenes, whole networks are working overtime. There are chemists in hidden labs, shipping brokers with burner phones, hackers rerouting packages, and money launderers buying up real estate so fast it makes your local realtor dizzy. Each shipment that gets caught is a setback, but only briefly. The next one is already in motion, repackaged, rerouted, relabeled as vitamin powder or industrial cleaner. It's a never-ending relay, and there's always another runner waiting at the border. And then there's the paperwork. Oh, the paperwork. Customs declarations, shipping manifests, seizure reports, press releases. For every kilo seized, there's a mountain of forms to fill out and a dozen supervisors asking, "Could we have caught it sooner?" The only thing moving faster than the drugs is the paperwork trying to keep up. You'd think this would all be very cloak and dagger, but sometimes it's almost laughably low-tech. One notorious bust found fentanyl packed inside stacks of plastic garden flamingos, shipped by the dozen. Another was hidden in hollowed-out books, because if there's one thing nobody opens anymore, it's a dictionary. Despite the constant threat, the people on the front lines keep showing up. They train, they scan, they triple-check every teddy bear and tube of toothpaste. There are long nights, tense mornings, and the nagging sense that no matter how many busts make the news, more always get through. So as you drift off tonight, picture a shipping yard under floodlights, a sniffer dog wagging its tail, and a customs agent eyeing a crate of rubber duckies with deep suspicion. The war on drugs, it turns out, is fought with scanners, spreadsheets, and a whole lot of guesswork, and sometimes the real heroes are the ones who ask, "Why does this teddy bear weigh 15 pounds? Sleep well, and may your care packages always be just cookies. Forget city back alleys. Now it's suburban cul-de-sacs, minivans, and PTA meetings." No one is immune, and the phrase "not in my neighbourhood" gets an ironic new meaning as overdoses spike in the nicest zip codes. Let's take a stroll down a classic suburban street. Manicured lawns, mailboxes shaped like ducks, the faint scent of fresh mulch and competitive neighbourliness in the air. Sprinklers tick rhythmically. Wind chimes sing softly. The real estate agent promised you peace, quiet, and above-average school districts. The only thing you worried about moving here was crabgrass or maybe an HOA violation about your recycling bins. But quietly, something else is happening. It starts as a whisper, rumours at book club, a conversation in the school pickup line, someone's cousin having a hard time. You hear about ambulances pulling up in the middle of the night, flashing lights illuminating rows of identical houses. There are murmurs about a medical emergency, but nobody says the word overdose out loud. It feels impossible, almost rude, to imagine anything so chaotic happening among the brick facades and vinyl siding. Yet the numbers keep rising. It's not just other places. It's here, right next door, down the block, in the house with the Halloween decorations still up in March. Pills show up in medicine cabinets, passed from friend to friend, kid to kid, parent to parent. It's never a dramatic story. A surgery, a sports injury, a sleepless night. The prescription is filled, the pain is dulled, but the bottle doesn't disappear when the pain does. It lingers, multiplying quietly in the shadow of the breakfast nook. You watch as neighbourhoods adapt. School newsletters start including opioid awareness in between lunch menus and reminders to return library books. The local pharmacy runs out of lockboxes, then stocks more. The PTA schedules a seminar titled Substance Safety for Suburban Families. You get a flyer in the mail, dispose of your unused medications safely, along with coupons for mulch and pet grooming. Conversations at backyard cookouts shift. People compare not just summer vacations, but experiences with physical therapy, pain management, what worked and what didn't. Someone's nephew had a rough patch. Someone else's daughter is taking a semester off. The language is careful, but everyone understands. It's the same story in a new setting. Emergency services learn to expect the unexpected. Paramedics now carry Narcan in their medical kits, tucked beside the bandages and blood pressure cuffs. Officers train for overdose response, just in case it's not a heart attack or a fall from a trampoline. Neighbours swap texts at odd hours. "Did you hear the sirens last night?" And try to be a little more watchful, a little more gentle. For families, the impact is profound and deeply private. Parents become detectives, counting pills and double-checking backpacks. Teens trade advice about how to spot a bad pill at parties or how to call for help without getting in trouble. The line between good and bad neighbourhoods disappears. The crisis, once distant, is right here in the land of community pools and synchronized lawn mowing. Even the architecture gets involved. Suburban houses, with their bonus rooms and finished basements, become both sanctuary and battleground. There are quiet interventions in family rooms, heart-to-hearts in driveways, silent prayers whispered in walk-in closets. Some families close ranks, keeping secrets. Others open up, sharing stories at school board meetings and community potlucks. The stigma softens, if only by necessity. It's hard to look down on anyone else when everyone's touched by the same problem. And so, as dusk falls over the cul-de-sac and porch lights flicker on, you realise the truth. Suffering is no longer somewhere else. It's right here, woven into the fabric of suburban life. The fences may be white picket, but they don't keep out everything. Tonight you tuck yourself in and hope for peace, knowing that in this new reality nobody gets to say "not in my neighbourhood" ever again. Cable news pivots from panic to paranoia. Suddenly everything is laced with fentanyl, Halloween candy, dollar bills, that mysterious sprinkle on your bagel. Nothing is safe. It's less about harm reduction, more about ratings. You're watching TV on a Tuesday night, bowl of popcorn in your lap, when the anchor's face appears. Urgent, slightly sweaty, with eyebrows arched to maximum concern. Is your household safe from the new fentanyl threat? They ask. In the next segment, someone holds up a bag of Skittles and whispers as if he's explaining state secrets. Could this candy kill your child? You look at your own candy stash, suddenly suspicious, and wonder if you should wear gloves the next time you raid the snack drawer. The warnings multiply. One channel says trick-or-treating is a minefield. Another claims cash is now potentially hazardous. Social media joins the fray, sharing blurry photos of rainbow-coloured pills next to warnings written in all caps. There's a rumour about a batch of bagels found in New Jersey, tainted, apparently, by a drug-smuggling plot so complex it would make James Bond weep. You start to eye everything with doubt. Did your neighbour's lemon squares seem extra powdery? It isn't just the news. Your phone lights up with group texts. Parents circulate urgent reminders. Neighbourhood Facebook groups issue stern advisories. And someone's uncle's co-worker's friend knows a guy who almost touched a dollar bill and felt funny for a week. Even grocery store tabloids join in. Fentanyl in fruit bowls, screams the cover. Suddenly a banana is more stressful than a tax audit. None of this, of course, helps anyone actually at risk. It's fear with nowhere to go, sloshing from screen to screen, instead of facts about what fentanyl is and where the danger actually lies, like counterfeit pills or contaminated street drugs. The airwaves fill with horror stories about Halloween, handshakes and public transportation. The CDC's sensible advice is drowned out by pundits speculating about whether a single grain of powder on your shoelace could bring down a moose. If you listen long enough, you start to wonder if anyone is sleeping at all. Paranoia thrives. Every headline becomes a horror story. Every news break an adrenaline spike. There are interviews with experts, some credentialed, some just available. There's talk of mandatory gloves for teachers, dollar bill decontamination, and special Halloween fentanyl sniffing dogs. Local officials, pressed for comment, try to strike a balance between reassurance and not sounding like they're reading from a dystopian script. In the background, people who actually work in harm reduction watch with a mix of disbelief and exhaustion. They know the real risks, how a tainted pill or an accidental mix-up can ruin lives. But the message, test your substances, carry Narcan, know the signs of overdose, rarely makes it above the static. Instead, the public is left with a gnawing sense of danger, vague, ever-present, and mostly aimed at the wrong things. Meanwhile, the ratings go up. Anchors return after commercial breaks with even more alarming graphics. News tickers flash. Latest fentanyl scare. Updates at 11. The fear is contagious, passed from screen to screen like the world's most persistent chain email. In your own kitchen, you find yourself washing your hands after counting cash and giving your bagel an extra inspection. As the segment ends and you finally switch off the TV, you realise how easy it is to panic about shadows. The true story is out there, quiet, complicated, and often untelevised. Fear sells, but knowledge saves. You breathe deep, try to let the dread dissolve, and remind yourself, not everything sprinkled on your life is fentanyl. Sometimes it really is just powdered sugar. Sleep well, and maybe don't eat any mysterious bagels before bed. A new survival trend. Test strips to see if your party drugs are secretly deadly. You're now a chemist, a risk analyst, and apparently the responsible friend at every party. Science class just got a lot more relevant. Let's rewind. Not long ago, the boldest thing you brought to a party was a tub of homemade hummus, or maybe that weird seltzer nobody liked. But now, stuffed in the pocket of your jeans, right next to your phone and a half-melted lip balm, is a small envelope containing fentanyl test strips. They look suspiciously like the cheap pregnancy tests you buy at 2 a.m. for peace of mind. But instead of planning a baby shower, you're planning how not to accidentally headline the local news. You open the package and find instructions written in a font only slightly smaller than your patient's. It feels like reading a recipe for disaster prevention. Dissolve a small amount of your sample in water. Dip the strip. Wait 15 seconds. Don't panic if it turns pink. The science is straightforward, but the social etiquette is brand new. Suddenly, you're that person at the party, the one in the bathroom mixing solutions with a Dixie cup and a nervous look, while someone knocks on the door asking if you're almost done in there. This is the new normal in harm reduction. Nobody trusts the source, the street, or even their best friend's cousin's roommate who knows a guy. The risk of contamination is everywhere, so the test strip becomes a tiny shield against disaster. It's an oddly hopeful little ritual, careful, clinical, almost optimistic. The presence of test strips doesn't mean you're reckless. It means you want to stick around for next weekend. At first, there's a little awkwardness. You have to explain the science, reassure the skeptics, and set the mood. No, this isn't a scene from Breaking Bad, it's just good sense. You hand out strips at pre-games like party favors, comparing brands and sharing YouTube tutorials. Friends swap tips on best testing practices between sips of warm beer. Even the DJs at raves pause to announce the location of the free test table next to the lost and found. You become, unwillingly, the responsible one. You're the friend with band-aids, the group chat's just checking in texter, and now the in-house chemist. You learn to measure just the right amount, enough to get a reading, not enough to make a mess. If the test comes back positive, there's a brief moment of panic, a quick thank you, and a silent vow to be more careful next time. You save lives with a strip of paper and a shot glass. Who knew high school chemistry would finally pay off? Parents predictably have questions. Are you sure this is safe? Isn't that encouraging bad behavior? But harm reduction doesn't care about moral panic. It cares about seeing everyone home in the morning. College campuses stock strips at health centres, festivals put them in welcome bags, and local governments quietly endorse their distribution, because pretending the problem doesn't exist hasn't worked so far. Of course, there's still a learning curve. The first time you try it, you spill water everywhere and nearly drop a strip in your drink. But soon it becomes routine, a tiny gesture of self-preservation, quietly normalised. You become part of an underground network of people who'd rather be safe than sorry, a club with no membership fee, just a little humility and a willingness to learn. So tonight, as you stash your test strips next to your keys and that awkward granola bar you always forget about, you realise that survival is sometimes just a matter of preparation. Science class might not have taught you how to fold a fitted sheet, but it's definitely helping you keep your friends alive. Sleep well, Professor Party. And remember, safety first, even when the soundtrack is questionable. Suddenly the folks who invented this mess are in courtrooms, facing angry lawyers and awkwardly apologising on behalf of the industry. The settlements are huge. The sense of closure, not so much. Let's imagine the scene. A stately courtroom, rows of polished wood and unsmiling security guards, and somewhere near the front, a row of executives in expensive suits who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. The lawyers arrive armed with manila folders thick enough to be used as doorstops, while reporters jostle for seats, legal pads in hand, ready to chronicle the drama. This isn't your average Judge Judy rerun. It's the pharmaceutical trial of the century, and the stakes are more than just TV ratings. For years, pharmaceutical companies insisted that they were just meeting a need. Pain, after all, was the enemy, and if a little medicine was good, surely a lot was better. Now, as overdose deaths mount and communities stagger under the weight of loss, the tide turns. Suddenly, the suits behind the boardroom doors are summoned to explain themselves, under oath, on camera, and with all the enthusiasm of a cat in a bathtub. The opening statements are a dance of deflection and denial. Company spokespeople insist they didn't know, or couldn't have foreseen, or that misuse by a small minority is to blame. The awkwardly worded apologies begin to flow. "We're sorry for any inconvenience," says one exec. as if they accidentally double-booked a conference room instead of contributing to a national crisis. In between apologies, there are charts, graphs, and the classic PowerPoint move. Too many slides, not enough answers. The lawyers, for their part, have done their homework. They quote internal memos, replay old commercials, and introduce email chains where marketing managers toss around phrases like opportunity for growth and market saturation, which, in hindsight, sound more ominous than optimistic. There are references to sponsored pain seminars in tropical locations and bonus programs that rewarded high-volume prescribers. Each revelation lands with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. In the gallery, you find families who lost loved ones. They clutch photos, shake their heads, and watch the spectacle with a mix of hope and exhaustion. For years, they've waited for answers, or at least acknowledgement that the suffering wasn't just bad luck. Their grief hangs in the air like humidity, heavy and impossible to ignore. Occasionally, a CEO glances their way, only to return to their notes or their lawyer's reassuring whisper. The settlements start rolling in, numbers with so many zeros they barely fit on the screen. States and counties receive millions, even billions, earmarked for treatment, education, prevention. It sounds like victory. There are press conferences, photo ops, and giant checks hoisted for the cameras. But if you listen closely, the sigh of relief is only half-hearted. Nobody can quite agree what justice looks like when the damage can't be undone. And of course, the finger-pointing begins in earnest. Drug makers blame doctors, doctors blame distributors, distributors blame regulators, and everyone blames the system. In the end, the blame feels like a hot potato passed from hand to hand, growing heavier instead of lighter. The sense of closure for most people never quite arrives. The pain remains, the lawsuits drag on, and the people at the heart of the story still go home to empty chairs and unfinished conversations. But maybe, in some small way, these trials force a reckoning, a chance to look honestly at what happens when profit, pain, and denial collide. Tonight, the courtrooms are empty, the reporters have filed their stories, and America drifts off with more questions than answers. In the silence that follows the gavel's echo, the only certainty is that money can't buy what people really want, a way to turn back the clock. Sleep well, jury of the future. The verdict, as always, is complicated. Even when the headlines fade, people are still clawing their way back from the abyss. Rehab, relapse, and recovery meetings are the new normal. You try to support your friends, but nobody has the answers. The hardest step? Admitting you need help in a country where just get over it is considered a treatment plan. Recovery is less like climbing a mountain and more like navigating a funhouse, one with a revolving door, slippery floors, and a mirror at every turn. You want a straight path, a finish line, a medal that says congratulations, you did it. Instead, you find paperwork, wait lists, and the awkward silence that falls when you tell someone you're in treatment. There are brochures, group sessions, and the ever-present question, how are you doing? Which is harder to answer than you'd think. At first, everything is foreign. You sit in folding chairs arranged in a circle, in rooms that always smell like burnt coffee and old carpet. There are stories that sound eerily like your own, and stories so raw they leave you staring at the exit sign wondering if you should bolt. Someone passes out a schedule, group therapy, individual sessions, something called life skills, and plenty of reminders to be gentle with yourself. It sounds simple. It's not. Outside, the world moves on, blissfully unaware. Co-workers offer casual support but keep their distance. Friends text you memes and ask, "Are you better yet?" Family members, hearts in the right place, quietly Google how to talk to someone in recovery and settle on cheerful but vague encouragement. "You're so strong." In church basements and community centres, people gather to talk about their journey, only to return home to neighbourhoods that aren't sure what to say. Stigma is the shadow that follows. You learn to dodge loaded questions. Why can't you just quit? Don't you know that stuff's dangerous? What did you do wrong? Everyone becomes a detective, looking for a cause, divorce, bad influences, a tragic backstory, anything but the plain, uncomfortable truth that addiction doesn't care about resumes or tax brackets. It's an equal opportunity saboteur. Relapse, once just a word in pamphlets, becomes part of the rhythm. Some days you feel invincible. Other days it's all you can do to put one foot in front of the other. The guilt creeps in, the sense that every stumble is a personal failure, not just a step in a painfully complicated dance. People tell you relapse is part of recovery, but you notice their relief when you don't mention it at all. There are small victories. The first time you laugh and mean it, the first holiday without panic, the day you realize you've stopped counting days. You celebrate quietly, maybe with a cupcake or a walk in the park. Every clean morning is a kind of miracle. There are new friends, new routines, and a community of people who get it, who don't ask for explanations, don't flinch at the truth, and know that sometimes the best support is simply sitting nearby, not saying a word. Still, the struggle is real and relentless. Insurance forms, out-of-pocket bills, phone calls with people who sound like robots. You learn to advocate for yourself, to ask for help, to accept that help might come from unexpected places, a neighbour, a co-worker, a stranger in a meeting with a story just like yours. You learn the hard way that recovery isn't a finish line. It's a daily practice, an imperfect science, and sometimes a leap of faith. Tonight, as you lie in bed, you think about the people you've met along the way, some still fighting, some finding peace, some lost. You remember that asking for help is the bravest, hardest thing. In a world that values self-reliance above all, you quietly root for everyone who dares to try again tomorrow. Sleep well, champion of second chances. The journey continues, one honest step at a time. In the middle of the chaos, community volunteers, outreach workers, and exhausted nurses fight to save lives, one naloxone kit at a time. It's not glamorous and no one gets rich, but these folks are the closest thing America has to saints. Let's take a moment to appreciate the people whose heroics never make the evening news. No spotlights, no awards, just a battered backpack and a schedule that never really ends. These are the harm reduction warriors, the people who step into the breach day after day, with the quiet confidence of those who know that the smallest acts can tip the scale between tragedy and survival. You might spot them at dawn, setting up folding tables under highway overpasses or in church parking lots. Their supplies: a box of naloxone kits, stacks of clean syringes, a few bottles of water, and enough granola bars to keep an army of volunteers fueled for the morning. They greet everyone with the same warmth, no judgment, no lecture, just a simple, "Hey, how are you doing?" The regulars know them by name. Strangers become friends. Sometimes trust is built over months, one shared cup of coffee at a time. These volunteers work the front lines of America's crisis, but their tools are as humble as their intentions. They teach anyone, literally anyone, how to spot an overdose, how to use naloxone, and what to say to a panicked 911 dispatcher. They answer questions from parents, friends, even strangers at the bus stop. If you hang around long enough, you'll hear the same instructions given over and over, patiently, as if each person is the most important one they'll see that day. Because in that moment they are. It's not just about reversing overdoses. Harm reduction warriors hand out test strips, wound care supplies, and bus tokens. They offer hugs, high fives, and the occasional reality check. They know the birthdays of people who haven't celebrated in years. They help fill out forms, find lost IDs, track down missing relatives, and sometimes just listen, really listen, to stories that are raw, unfinished, and sometimes hard to hear. They don't wear capes. Their uniforms are jeans, t-shirts, maybe a hoodie emblazoned with the name of a scrappy non-profit. Their superpower is showing up, again and again, whether it's snowing, sweltering, or somewhere in between. They're greeted with suspicion, gratitude, laughter, or tears. It's never the same day twice. The job isn't easy. Some nights they go home with empty kits and heavy hearts, wondering if it made a difference. There are more losses than anyone admits out loud, and the burnout is real. But the victories, when they come, are life-changing. Someone who just wanted to say thank you. Someone who comes back a year later, newly steady, carrying a box of donuts as a kind of peace offering to the world. Each story is proof that hope, when shared, is contagious. The public doesn't always understand. Some see harm reduction as controversial, even enabling. There are protests, city council debates, and the occasional angry editorial. But the warriors keep going. They've learned that meeting people where they are, literally and figuratively, is the only way forward. The measure of success isn't a number on a spreadsheet. It's one more life saved, one more chance at tomorrow. Tonight, as you settle in, think of the harm reduction warriors, filling backpacks, restocking kits, planning another day. No parades, no medals, just the quiet, stubborn conviction that compassion matters. They won't save everyone, but they'll try. And sometimes, that's enough to keep the world turning, one rescued heartbeat at a time. Sleep well, champion of kindness. Somewhere out there, another warrior is already preparing for morning. Pharmaceutical companies quietly pivot to abuse-deterrent pills, safer pain management, and, of course, new drugs to fix the side effects of the old drugs. Will science pull us out of this spiral, or just invent a shinier disaster? It's a familiar story. A problem blooms, science springs into action, and the promise of innovation shimmers on the horizon like a mirage in a desert of regret. The crisis that began with miracle pills now demands another miracle, this time, with fewer disastrous side effects, and, ideally, less international notoriety. Enter the age of the abuse-deterrent pill. The commercials are back, but they sound different. Soothing music, earnest actors, and reassuring words like tamper-resistant and safe release. The new drugs come in coatings you can't crush, formulas you can't melt, or weird little beads that seem to bounce away from even the most determined mischief. Somewhere in a lab, a scientist high-fives another for inventing a pill that supposedly only works the way it's supposed to, which, if history is any guide, is both comforting and just a little ominous. You start hearing about alternatives, patches, sprays, slow-release implants, even virtual reality headsets for pain distraction. Doctors host webinars on non-opioid pain solutions. Health tech startups pitch apps to track your mood, your movement, your dreams. There's an app for everything, including, no joke, reminding you to refill your side effect medication for the side effect medication from your original prescription. Science means well. Researchers toil away, chasing non-addictive painkillers that work for everyone, regardless of genetics, age, or whether you've ever owned a lava lamp. There are promising trials and hopeful headlines, and for a moment, it feels like relief is right around the corner. Doctors prescribe with a little more caution, insurance companies learn the names of a dozen new drugs, and pharmacists do their best to explain the difference between extended release and you probably shouldn't take this with grapefruit. But progress is never simple. For every new wonder drug, there's a growing list of possible side effects, read at auctioneer speed at the end of each commercial. May cause drowsiness, dry mouth, involuntary interpretive dance, or existential dread. Some of the new deterrent pills cost more than a used car. Others, in a twist worthy of a sitcom, still find their way into the wrong hands, because if human ingenuity has taught us anything, it's that someone, somewhere, will figure out how to crack even the most tamper-proof formula. Patients, meanwhile, are caught in the middle. You want to believe the next prescription will be the one that fixes everything, that science can invent us out of our own mess. Some people find real relief. Others discover that the new pills are no match for old pain, or that the only thing worse than withdrawal is the insurance paperwork required for an abuse-deterrent option. The world keeps spinning. Research papers pile up, funding is granted, and every year, a few more scientists win awards for trying to end a crisis that their predecessors, sometimes unwittingly, helped to start. There are glimmers of hope. Pain management, once a guessing game, now comes with checklists, counselling, and, if you're lucky, a doctor who listens for more than 8 minutes. Medical schools update their curriculums, tech companies pitch wearables for mindful breathing, and somewhere, a grad student dreams up a pill that dissolves only in the presence of true, heartfelt gratitude. But in the end, the question lingers. Can science save us? Or will it just give us a more sophisticated disaster next time? History is a loop. Miracles, mayhem, and the endless search for something a little less painful. So tonight, as you tuck yourself in and scroll past another headline about a breakthrough, remember, hope is great, but a little skepticism is healthy. Sleep well, future beneficiary of scientific progress, whatever that means tomorrow. As America wrestles with the fallout, fentanyl starts showing up everywhere. Europe, Asia, Australia. It's the global export nobody wanted, and every government is suddenly scrambling to read the playbook you just lived through. Picture a world map on the wall, little red pins appearing like a case of measles. News anchors in crisp suits report on mysterious spikes in overdoses, the sudden popularity of unfamiliar pills, and emerging threats making their way through customs and street corners alike. Local papers in Paris, Sydney and Tokyo struggle to spell fentanyl correctly, while governments host press conferences with the nervous energy of substitute teachers handed a pop quiz. It's the classic American export, except it isn't rock and roll or blue jeans. This time, It's a synthetic opioid measured in micrograms, a chemical stowaway that sneaks across borders, through shipping lanes and mail rooms, sometimes disguised as medicine, sometimes as glitter, sometimes as nothing at all. What started in pain clinics and pharmacies is now a global whodunit, with countries flipping through the pages of the American disaster, looking for tips on what not to do. First, there's denial. It can't happen here, officials say, as if fentanyl respects passport control. Local doctors raise eyebrows, then sound alarms. Headlines start small, 2 overdose deaths. Linked to fentanyl, then spiral. Police departments run crash courses in chemistry. Paramedics stock up on Narcan. Politicians consult American experts, who can only offer the same advice they wish they'd been given. Act fast. Don't wait for the headlines. The patterns repeat. Fake pills, counterfeit prescription bottles, powder showing up where it never belonged. Drug dealers, ever the entrepreneurs, figure out how to market the latest import. A few try to rebrand. This is safer, purer, more reliable. It never is. Meanwhile, health officials try to teach an entire continent's worth of parents how to recognize a fentanyl overdose using infographics and awkward school assemblies. There's a cultural clash too. Some places are already familiar with heroin, others have their own favourite dangers. Fentanyl levels the playing field. Suddenly, harm reduction advocates are holding workshops in 6 languages, explaining how a dose the size of a sprinkle can change everything. In European capitals, festival organisers hand out test strips at the entrance. In Asian megacities, families quietly clean out medicine cabinets and hope it's enough. The whiplash is real. For years, people watched America's opioid crisis with a mix of pity and disbelief. Now, it's their phone buzzing with late-night warnings, their neighbourhood pharmacy running out of lockboxes, their kids coming home from school with pamphlets about the silent killer. No country is ready, but all are learning fast. And yet, amidst the panic, something else emerges: connection. Harm reduction playbooks travel across borders. Communities share survival tactics, not just horror stories. Families in Dublin trade advice with those in Denver. Outreach workers in Toronto Zoom with colleagues in Taipei. Here's what worked, here's what didn't. Here's how to save a life with a plastic spray bottle and a little luck. The world shrinks, not with fear, but with hard-won knowledge. Governments scramble for solutions, stricter customs checks, new laws, pharmaceutical crackdowns. Some even try opioid amnesties, asking people to turn in pills with the promise of no questions asked. It's a mess, but a strangely hopeful one. The realization that when danger doesn't respect borders, maybe compassion shouldn't either. So tonight, as you drift off, remember that fentanyl's story is no longer just America's nightmare. It's a challenge passed hand to hand, country to country, a chemical riddle for a shrinking world. Somewhere, a customs agent eyes a suspicious package. Somewhere else, a parent double locks the medicine cabinet and hopes for morning. The next wave is here, but so are the lessons. Sleep well, and may your borders always be just lines on a map. Now, it's just you, a medicine cabinet and a head full of questions. Has anything changed? Are we wiser, or just more exhausted? You try to imagine a world where pain is treated with something other than pills, where tragedy isn't measured in milligrams, and where the scariest thing in your bathroom is still the scale. You stare at the rows of bottles, some old, some new, a few long since expired, all standing like tiny glass soldiers behind the mirror. Childproof caps, faded labels, the faint rattle of forgotten tablets. It's a quiet inventory, a ritual as ordinary as brushing your teeth, and yet each bottle tells a story, of injury, of hope, of a rough patch that lingered, of promises made, some kept, some broken. You wonder if every household in America has their own private pharmacy, or if yours is just unusually well stocked for a rainy day that never quite ended. It's easy to feel a strange nostalgia for the before times, when pain was an inconvenience, not a crisis, when the only thing you worried about in the bathroom was slipping on the tile or facing the scale after a particularly enthusiastic holiday season. Back then, medicine was something your doctor handed out for a cold or a broken bone. Now, every prescription comes with a lecture, a warning, a sigh. You think about the journey, the pain scale charts, the prescription pads wielded like magic wands, the smiling faces in the advertisements promising a life without discomfort, the pills that were supposed to save us, the bottles that quietly took over, the nights you lay awake, watching the clock, counting out the hours between doses, the fear of running out, the guilt when you realized you'd lost track. And then there's the aftermath. The Narcan kits in every public space, the news stories fading in and out of focus, the funerals and the fundraisers and the endless search for answers. You wonder how many lives were changed, or lost, or quietly rebuilt. How many families are still counting their own medicine bottles, still whispering prayers to ancestors, science, or luck? You ask yourself, what, if anything, have we learned? Maybe it's that pain is universal, but solutions are complicated, that pills are easy to prescribe but hard to put back in the bottle, figuratively and literally. That hope, once misplaced, is not so easily reclaimed. You realize, with a mix of sadness and relief, that there are no simple answers. There never were. Maybe we're a little wiser, maybe we're just more cautious, a bit slower to believe in magic fixes. You imagine a world where pain is met with patience, where doctors have the time and resources to listen, where treatment doesn't begin and end with a slip of paper. A world where support is a phone call away, where suffering isn't a shameful secret, and where recovery is celebrated, not hidden away. You close the cabinet, the bottles clinking softly, and wonder what stories will be told next. Will future generations open their own medicine cabinets and find answers, or just more questions? Will we invent new ways to heal, or will history repeat itself, one miracle drug at a time? Outside, the world is quiet. The crisis has changed, but not disappeared. There's hope, somewhere, in all this uncertainty. Maybe it's in the nurse handing out naloxone at a health fair, or the teacher learning to spot signs of trouble, or the neighbour who knocks to check in just because. Maybe the lesson is simply this, that even in the middle of disaster, people keep trying, to help, to heal, to forgive. So tonight, as you settle under the covers, leave the medicine cabinet closed and the questions unanswered, just for now. History is long, healing is slow, and wisdom, like all the best medicines, comes in small, hard-earned doses. Sleep well, you curious survivor. The hardest questions will still be here in the morning. You'd think opioid marketing would stick to hospitals and waiting rooms. But no, suddenly, celebrities are casually name-dropping painkillers in interviews like they're the new gluten-free snack. It's not long before late-night TV hosts are making oxy punchlines and rock stars are crediting prescription drugs for their chart-topping insomnia. When the cure for pain gets its own red carpet, you know something's gone deeply sideways. It starts as a whisper, as these things always do. A stray comment on a late-night talk show, a reference in a tabloid, the glint of an orange bottle in the Instagram feed of someone with perfect teeth and very expensive shoes. Suddenly, the medication that was supposed to be a last resort for grandmas with hip replacements is the hottest accessory at awards season after-parties. The paparazzi catch a pop star clutching a pharmacy bag, and the internet speculates, was it just for a cold, or is it the latest A-list wellness trend? The lines blur quickly. Painkillers, with names that sound both clinical and oddly poetic, OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, make their way into lyrics, stand-up routines, and even Oscar acceptance speeches. There are stories about back injuries, dental surgery, creative burnout. There are sly jokes on sitcoms and heartfelt magazine interviews about finding relief during a grueling tour. A B-list actor launches a line of t-shirts with pill bottles screen-printed on the front. It's ironic, they claim, or maybe commentary. You're not sure, and neither are they. The result is a cultural feedback loop. The drugs that started as an answer to pain now have a brand, a soundtrack, and a merch line. Fans tweet their own stories. My back pain is just like my favourite pop stars, and painkillers become both punchline and aspiration. It's an odd thing, watching something so private and medical become a kind of public shorthand for edgy, troubled, or relatable. Daytime TV hosts run segments on breaking the stigma, sandwiched between cooking demos and segments on pet fashion. And the marketers are watching. Pharmaceutical companies quietly sponsor charity galas, donate to film festivals, and host awareness luncheons where the guest list is a who's who of tabloid regulars. Studio publicists field calls from reporters asking, was your client really prescribed OxyContin, or is it just a stage prop? Meanwhile, comedians fill their monologues with jokes about doctor shopping and the side effects of fame. If you're keeping score, you'll notice that pain relief is officially trending. Of course, there's a darker side. As painkillers become part of the pop culture conversation, the lines between treatment and trend blur in dangerous ways. Young people, not wanting to be left out of the latest celebrity moment, start to experiment. The risks, so carefully hidden behind glitzy endorsements and glossy magazine covers, slip through the cracks. Rehab centers quietly expand their VIP wings. Paparazzi stake out entrances, hoping for a before and after shot. TMZ speculates on who's in recovery and who's off the wagon. The cycle is relentless, the headlines both tragic and lucrative. Yet the real consequences are quieter. For every late-night joke and self-deprecating Instagram post, there are families searching for answers, doctors fielding anxious calls, fans wondering where the line between parody and PSA really falls. The same bottle that was once a punchline becomes the focal point of 100 stories about struggle, relapse, and survival. And through it all, you can't help but marvel. Only in Hollywood could a crisis be both glamorized and stigmatized, monetized and mourned, all in the same news cycle. The medicine meant for healing gets its own walk of fame, and the world somehow keeps applauding. So tonight, as you drift off, remember, the next time you see a celebrity on TV, they might just be name-dropping their prescription too. Fame comes with a lot of baggage. Sometimes it even rattles when you walk. Sleep well, and may your dreams be celebrity-free, or at least less pharmaceutical. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and so a new sport is born, doctor shopping. You too can master the art of booking back-to-back appointments, inventing dramatic backstories, and collecting prescriptions like they're vintage baseball cards. It's a game of wits, acting, and finding a pharmacy that doesn't ask too many questions, a darkly absurd scavenger hunt with very real consequences. It all begins with a prescription, just one, at first, for a legitimate pain, injury, or maybe just the world's most persistent headache. But soon, your body adapts, your refill runs out, and your doctor, who once greeted you like an old friend, starts to squint suspiciously at your chart. Let's try something else, they say. Or worse, I think you'll be fine without the pills this time. Panic sets in. You need a plan. Enter the Olympics. The rules are simple, if unspoken. Your goal is to collect as many prescriptions as possible without arousing suspicion or ending up on a federal watch list. You study maps, memorizing the location of every urgent care clinic and family practice within a 50-mile radius. Your phone fills with appointment reminders and notes to self. Don't repeat the same story twice. Change your outfit. Always compliment the receptionist. Soon you become a master of disguise and improvisation. Sometimes you're a construction worker with a bad back. Other times, a grad student with debilitating migraines, or a parent who twisted their ankle chasing a rogue toddler. Your symptoms shift like clouds, always believable, never too dramatic. You learn just how much pain to show, how much to downplay, which doctors are sticklers, and which ones, after a sympathetic sigh, will hand you a prescription with barely a question. Timing is everything. You schedule appointments in different neighborhoods, on different days, sometimes driving across county lines to avoid running into the same nurse twice. Pharmacies become your finish line. The small independent ones tucked between laundromats and takeout joints are often the most discreet. But you learn quickly that even chain stores have their quirks. Some will call your doctor, some will just hand over the pills with a polite "feel better soon," and there's paperwork, so much paperwork. You fill out new patient forms in waiting rooms that all look the same, outdated magazines, a plastic plant, a clock that's always 5 minutes slow. Your handwriting becomes neat and practiced, except when it's not supposed to be. You memorize your insurance information, know which answers to give and which ones to leave blank. When asked about your pain level, you settle somewhere between barely functional and heroically stoic. Too high and you look suspicious, too low and you walk out empty-handed. There's a sense of competition. You swap tips with others who've joined the games, which doctors are easy, which pharmacies never ask questions, how to avoid getting flagged by the mysterious prescription drug monitoring programs. There's talk of people crossing state lines, using fake names, or borrowing a friend's address, anything to stay one step ahead. It's part chess match, part improv comedy, part desperate sprint for the finish. Of course, the risks are real. You worry about getting caught, blacklisted, or having your insurance call with awkward questions. There's the gnawing anxiety, the web of lies, the dread of a phone call from your doctor asking, "Is there something you're not telling us?" But the fear of running out, of withdrawal, of raw untreated pain keeps you going. And so, the doctor shopping Olympics continue, with no medals, no sponsors, and no closing ceremony. It's a race nobody wanted to enter and everyone wants to escape. You dream of a world where relief doesn't require subterfuge, where honesty isn't punished, and where pharmacies are just for cough drops and awkward small talk. For now, you navigate the labyrinth with the skill of a gold medalist, knowing that this is one competition everyone loses eventually. Sleep well, champion of complicated logistics. Tomorrow's another qualifying round. For years, everyone trusted the pill bottle. The label looked official, the pharmacist smiled reassuringly, and the ads all but promised happiness. But underneath the pastel branding, the word safe was doing Olympic-level gymnastics. Turns out what's written on the label might as well be written in disappearing ink, because the safe dose keeps shrinking every year. You remember a time when a doctor's prescription felt almost sacred. The slip of paper was stamped, signed, maybe even embossed with a caduceus for extra gravitas. You'd walk it over to the pharmacy, hand it to a pharmacist who looked like everyone's favourite science teacher, and receive your little orange bottle in return. Instructions printed in all caps, warnings in a slightly more alarming red. Take as directed, do not operate heavy machinery, may cause drowsiness, euphoria, existential dread, or occasionally constipation. It all felt so safe. The bottle fit in your medicine cabinet between the toothpaste and the expired sunscreen. Commercials on TV showed attractive people hiking, gardening, or finally living their best lives, thanks to science and a small monthly copay. There were smiling faces, soft lighting, and an official-sounding voiceover. Ask your doctor if happiness is right for you. No one mentioned what could go wrong, how could they? It was a prescription after all, but the fine print tells another story. Maybe you start to notice the labels change. One year it's take as needed, the next it's take only, if necessary. Dosages shrink, refills are denied, and suddenly the same drug that was once handed out for a stubbed toe now requires a full inquisition, a signed affidavit, and a conversation that feels like pleading your case before a parole board. The word safe itself becomes a moving target. Medical journals publish new studies, regulators issue new guidelines, and overnight the definition of risk gets a dramatic rewrite. The maximum dose drops, the side effect list gets longer. Doctors, caught in the whirlwind, start looking nervous every time you mention pain. You see it in their eyes, a flicker of doubt, a sigh, the unspoken hope that Tylenol will be enough this time. Spoiler, it isn't. You start to realise that every prescription is a gamble. Not the kind with glitzy casinos and free drinks, but the slow, daily bet that what was once safe is still safe now. There are recalls, black box warnings, class action lawsuits advertised in the late-night slots between reruns of Law and Order. You hear stories, someone's cousin, a neighbour, the lady from church, who did everything right and still ended up on the wrong side of safe. The pharmacists do their best. They hand you stacks of informational leaflets, some as thick as a novella. Possible interactions, rare side effects. If you experience any of the following, call your doctor immediately. You nod, file the papers in the kitchen drawer, and wonder if you'll ever actually read them. Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies double down on pastel branding and positive vibes. Safer than ever, they announce, unveiling abuse-deterrent formulas and pills you can't crush, snort, or dissolve. It's progress, sort of, except that safe keeps getting redefined. The new pills are harder to misuse, but still not impossible. And the old ones? Well, if you still have them, you're part of an exclusive club, one the DEA would like to have a word with. All the while, you can't shake the feeling that you're part of an unspoken experiment. The rules keep changing, the dosages keep shrinking, and somewhere along the line, safe has become more of a hope than a guarantee. So tonight, as you brush your teeth and reach for your nightly pill, take a moment to appreciate the journey, from trusted prescription to moving target. Sleep well, dear label reader. May your medicine cabinet stay uneventful, and may all your warnings come printed in a font you can actually read. If you pictured the face of addiction, you probably didn't imagine Mildred from Bingo Night, or Carl who runs the church bake sale. But as the crisis grows, grandparents across America become the most unlikely cast members in the opioid drama, often starting with a routine knee surgery and ending with a family intervention that interrupts Sunday brunch. It's a quiet, almost invisible shift. You're sitting at the holiday table, passing mashed potatoes, and listening to stories about the good old days, and you don't realise that the real story is sitting in the medicine cabinet, behind the antacids and the jar of mysterious ointment that's older than your car. Grandma Mildred's hip replacement went smoothly, but the pain lingered. Carl's back started aching after decades of mowing every lawn on the block. The solution? A bottle of little white pills, handed over with a smile and a reassuring just take as needed. At first, it's all above board. Doctors prescribe carefully, pharmacists explain the risks, and the family keeps an eye on the dosage chart on the fridge. But pain has a way of hanging on, especially in joints that have seen more birthdays than you'd care to count. The pills work. Oh, do they work? Mildred's quilting club never saw her move so fast, and Carl can finally sit through a doubleheader without wincing every time he shifts in his seat. But slowly, routines change. The bottle gets a little lighter each week. Just one more becomes the refrain, echoing in houses filled with doilies and decades of memories. Refills are easy at first, then a little harder. There are phone calls to the doctor. Still having pain. Can I get another month? The answers become less enthusiastic. Doctors, by now, have seen the headlines. Let's try to cut back, they say. Maybe use Tylenol for the days in between. This is where things get tricky. The pain, once dulled, starts to creep back in. Sleep is harder, moods get pricklier. Mildred snaps at the grandkids, Carl skips the pancake breakfast. Nobody quite connects the dots, not at first. After all, these are the grandparents, the steady hands, the voices of reason, the family's North Star. Addiction is something that happens to other people, or at least it was. The clues pile up. Missing pills, lost prescriptions, stories that don't quite add up. Maybe someone finds empty bottles hidden in a sock drawer. Maybe a neighbour mentioned seeing Carl at a different pharmacy on the other side of town. Mildred's stories get a little more dramatic, her excuses a little more practiced. Family dinners turn tense, interventions are scheduled, and what was once Sunday brunch becomes a circle of worried faces and gentle questions. The stigma is especially cruel for this generation. Mildred and Carl were raised to tough it out, keep things private, and solve problems with elbow grease and a hot water bottle. Admitting a problem, any problem, isn't in their vocabulary. The word addict feels like a betrayal, a word reserved for TV dramas and cautionary tales, not church choirs and retirement teas. But the truth is stubborn. Opioid addiction, unlike fine china, does not respect age or good intentions. Recovery is slow, often painful, and full of awkward conversations. Grandkids learn new words: withdrawal, tapering, medication-assisted treatment. Families rally, car rides to appointments, hidden bottles tossed, casseroles delivered by the dozen. There's no easy ending, but there is hope. Mildred finds support at a group with others her age. Carl takes up walking just around the block at first, then farther each week. So as you tuck in tonight, remember, the face of addiction is not always what you expect. Sometimes it's the hand that bakes your birthday cake or wins at Scrabble every time. And as strange as it sounds, compassion and a little patience may be the best prescription of all. Sleep well and give Grandma a call in the morning. She might have a story to tell. Forget shady alleys, now the deadliest drug ship direct to your door, ordered with a few clicks and some cryptocurrency. You're living in a world where the corner dealer has been replaced by a faceless vendor named Painslayer92, and your biggest risk is accidentally clicking the wrong shipping option. Welcome to the era of encrypted agony. The internet, that glorious bazaar of cat memes, conspiracy theories, and questionable life hacks, has found a new niche, delivering danger to your doorstep. Gone are the days when illicit transactions required hushed whispers, furtive handoffs, or remembering which payphone didn't eat quarters. Instead, you log onto your computer, slip into the shadowy corners of the dark web, and find an entire pharmacy's worth of risk, packaged with the same customer service promises as a premium sock subscription. Your first stop is a marketplace, an eBay of mayhem, camouflaged behind login screens and passwords so complicated you have to write them on a napkin you'll promptly lose. The listings are oddly professional: high-purity fentanyl, discreet packaging, next-day delivery. 5-star reviews, shipping options, and even bundle deals. Some vendors offer loyalty points, as if you're buying groceries, not synthetic opioids. Payment, of course, is never in cash. It's cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Monero, or something that sounds like a new yoga pose. You read the instructions, transfer coins, confirm address, use PGP encryption. There's a helpful FAQ section, filled with tips like what to do if your package is seized by customs and how to leave a review without incriminating yourself. Somewhere, Your high school computer teacher feels a mysterious pang of pride and dread. You scroll past the vendor names: Painslayer, 92, Opioid King, Shady Pharmacist. Their avatars are as faceless as their customer service, but their promises are oddly familiar. Guaranteed satisfaction, stealth shipping, no questions asked. There's even an occasional buy one, get one free sale, because nothing says cyberpunk dystopia quite like a 2-for-1 deal on disaster. The shipping process is a miracle of modern logistics. The package arrives at your door disguised as anything but what it is: a USB cable, a tea sampler, sometimes even a cheerful greeting card. Inside, a bag of powder, measured out by someone you'll never meet, somewhere you'll never go. There's no return policy, no helpline, just a string of numbers and letters, and the hope that the dosage matches the description. And yet, the risks are exponentially higher. Without regulation or quality control, every order is a gamble. Dosages vary. Contaminants creep in. Every package is a Pandora's box. You read stories online. People who thought they were buying one thing, only to end up with something far deadlier. I only took half a pill, the posts say, and the rest of the story is silence. Law enforcement, meanwhile, is playing an endless game of digital whack-a-mole. For every marketplace shut down, 2 more pop up, each with new URLs, new vendor names, and increasingly sophisticated encryption. Postal inspectors get crash courses in blockchain. Packages flagged by drug-sniffing dogs become part of international sting operations. The war on drugs is now waged with server farms and screen captures. For users, the experience is both modern and medieval. High-tech access, old-fashioned risk, a package on your porch, a heartbeat of hesitation. Do you trust Painslayer, 92 more than the guy on the corner? Do you double-check the dosage, or trust the verified seller badge? Even the act of opening the mail feels faintly illicit, a blend of fear and hope. So tonight, as you shut down your computer and clear your browser history, remember, in this new era, danger doesn't wear a trench coat, it sends you a tracking number. Sleep well, careful clicker, and next time you see a package on your stoop, maybe hope it's just socks. So tonight, as you settle into your bed, clean sheets, soft pillow, maybe even a hot cup of something beside you, spare a quiet moment for the bizarre, exhausting, and sometimes terrifying journey you've just taken. You've walked through the well-lit waiting rooms, the pill-packed cabinets, and the back alleys of America's most absurd public health disaster. You've seen how a search for comfort can spiral into chaos, and how a tiny speck of white powder can change the fate of families, towns, and whole countries. You've met the doctors who meant well, the companies that didn't, and the families doing their best to piece things together, one conversation, one Narcan kit, one hope at a time. You've seen the headlines fade while the struggles remain, and you've watched, maybe a little incredulously, as America tried to fight chemistry with more chemistry, always inventing, always pivoting, always a little bit late to its own intervention. But for all the tragedy and absurdity, tonight's story is a reminder of something quietly miraculous. The stubborn, ridiculous resilience of people. The outreach volunteers showing up, the parents refusing to give up, the scientists tinkering, and the quiet courage of anyone fighting to start over, one shaky step at a time. It turns out, even in the middle of a chemical storm, people find ways to help, to laugh, and yes, to hope for a better ending. So as you drift off, maybe whisper a thank you for your medicine cabinet's current lack of drama, for hot showers, honest conversations, and friends who text to check in, just because. Because history, as always, is both a warning and a testament. People are resourceful, stubborn, and let's face it, endlessly weird. And if you ever need proof that humanity can survive anything, just remember, we're the species that made it through both the Black Plague and the opioid crisis. Not bad for a Monday. Sleep well, you've earned it.